Thank you, everybody. Now we move to our next case, Dr. Pooja Sinha. This is the last case of the webinar. And to introduce her, we have our scientific committee member, Dr. Balla. Dr. Balla, over to you.
Yeah. I think wonderful discussion we had. Now it's my pleasant duty to introduce the last speaker of the webinar, Dr. Pooja Sinha, who is young and dynamic VR surgeon from Patna. She did her MBBS from Mahai Institute and diploma in ophthalmology, fellowship in VR from Shankar Nethralaya, Chennai, and she was trained at Stanford University, USA, and Oxford University, UK, Hull, UK. She has been awarded Dr. D.K. Bose Gold Medal, and she is specialist in lasers and surgical and medical retina. She is key person in ABI Institute for conducting monthly CMEs, which are very popular. Over to you, Dr. Pooja. Stage is all yours.
Thank you very much, Balla sir, for this kind introduction. So a very good evening to all of you. Am I audible?
Yes.
A very good evening. I would like to thank Partha Biswas sir and All India Ophthalmic Society for giving me this opportunity. I'll be presenting a very challenging case of ARMD. Up until now, most of the action has been happening in the macula, but I'm presenting a case with action happening in the mid-periphery in contrast to other presenters. So here is a 68-year-old male patient with diminution of vision in the left eye for 1 month. He was a diabetic for 5 years. Recent glycosylated hemoglobin was 6.8%. There was no other significant systemic history. On examination, the vision in the right eye was 6/12 N12 and left eye was 6/24 N18. Slit lamp examination revealed grade 2 nuclear NS in both the eyes. So this is the picture of the right eye, which showed multiple drusen in the posterior pole with little bit of ILM wrinkling and few microaneurysms showing the mild non-NPDR changes in this patient. In the left eye, there were few microaneurysms and a large blood hemorrhage in the macula. There was a thin rim of subretinal hemorrhage at the temporal border of the macula. A massive dome-shaped peripheral hemorrhagic subretinal lesion was seen in the inferotemporal quadrant, which was both sub-RPE as well as subretinal. So the FFA showed leaking macroaneurysms, blocked fluorescence corresponding to the subretinal macular hemorrhage. There was blockage of choroidal fluorescence below the hemorrhagic mass. There were surrounding window defects from atrophic RPE changes. ICG was also done, which showed a very small hyperfluorescent polyp in the superior part of the hemorrhagic mass. This is the macular picture, which didn't show anything significant. This was the line scan through the hemorrhagic mass, which showed the subretinal hemorrhagic heme with little bit of subretinal fluid and intraretinal edema. So I diagnosed the case as PEHCR, that is peripheral exudative hemorrhagic choroidoretinopathy or peripheral IPCV. Injection of ranibizumab 0.05 ml was given, followed by laser around the hemorrhagic mass after a week in August 2018. The injection was repeated in a monthly interval over 3 months. So the hemorrhages had significantly cleared after the second injection. Few NPDR changes were remaining. There was a good scar around the mass-like lesion. And the vision had improved from 6/24 to 6/12 after the third injection. Again, the patient reported in February 2019, when the vision was 6/12, there was a thick band of subretinal hemorrhage surrounding the previous lesion. At this time, 2 more injections of ranibizumab were given in February and March 2019. Post-injections, the patient was doing quite well. The hemorrhages had decreased. At the end of 2 months, the vision had improved to 6/9. The hemorrhage had subsided with subretinal fibrosis, and not much diabetic changes were progressing in the patient, which was lucky for him. The FFA showed large chorioretinal atrophic patches with dilated choroidal veins and window defects with stippling. But to his dismay and to my dismay, the patient reported in July 2019 with a sudden diminution of vision in the left eye. At this point, he had developed vitreous hemorrhage, which was a breakthrough vitreous hemorrhage. And at this point, we decided to do a phaco-IOL surgery in him. with vitrectomy and peripheral endolaser. Post-vitrectomy, the vision had improved to 6/9, and there was complete regression of the lesion with RP hyperplasia and atrophy. But lo and behold, the patient has again reported to me a week back where he has dropped his vision to 6/60, sudden diminution of vision for a week. There's a large subretinal hemorrhage below the macula, abutting the fovea and extending inferiorly. And at this point of time, the FFA showed these small hyperfluorescent dot-like echoes, these polyps, polyp-like lesions, which I'm presuming could be the causative factor for this hemorrhage. So in conclusion, the peripheral exudative hemorrhagic choroidal retinopathy, or PEHCR, is an uncommon degenerative process of the retina with subretinal or sub-RP hemorrhage and exudative mass outside of the macular region. It was first described by Rees and Jones in 1962. Those two et al. Claim that PEHCR is the peripheral counterpart of ARMD, but drusen is the hallmark of ARMD, and that is mostly absent in PEHCR. The visual loss could be due to subretinal fluid, subretinal hemorrhage, or fibrosis. Breakthrough vitreous hemorrhage could be devastating and cause sudden drop of vision in these patients. OCT is sometimes not necessary when clinically we can see that the macula is not involved, but sometimes subtle peripheral submacular hemorrhagic changes can be seen, which was very evident in this patient. Sometimes exudation in the fovea and subretinal fluid is important to diagnose and quantify with an OCT. Differentials are again very important in these kind of diagnosis. B-scan is sometimes important to differentiate PEHCR from choroidal melanoma, where we all know that in PEHCR there will be a clot retraction cleft which is present, absence of intrinsic double circulation which is seen in choroidal melanoma, and no choroidal excavation as is seen in melanoma. So a regular and continuous follow-up is required owing to the aggressive nature of the disease. So the take-home message in this case, I would say, is like we have all been discussing that 90D diopter examination may not be sometimes, it may miss certain lesions, especially this large mound of hemorrhage could have been missed if we just did a 90D examination, because we would just think that the patient is a diabetic and we would just see these small NPDR changes and macroaneurysms and go ahead with the cataract surgery. So a 90D examination along with an indirect ophthalmoscopy is critical in these patients. And then I think also the role of aflibercept in these cases and PDT, as Professor Atul Kumar Sir was so nicely mentioning, may play a role. Thank you so much for your patient hearing.
Thank you, Pooja, for a very nice case. Would like to invite Dr. Mohan Rajan and Dr. Nishikant Borse for the expert comments for this case.
I think it's a yeah. Well, Nishi, you can go first.
Nice, fantastic case, Pooja. Very nice presentation. Did you try to do an ICG in this patient? You know, because as yeah, tell me.
I did, and I sent the patient for an ICG in the initial stages of the disease, but I couldn't see much. There was just a small leaking polyp, which I may have imagined, but there was something. A small leaking polyp was there in the superior part of the lesion. And what made me suspicious was that definitely subretinal hemorrhage was there in the peripheral part of the fovea. And this large mound of this hemorrhagic mass, which was sub-RP and subretinal, definitely had something to do with an IPCV, even though subretinal lipid exudation was not there in my case, which is so classic in IPCV.
So many of the PEHCRs, there has been a series by Shields et al. And even Mantel, which has shown that about 20% of these cases are having polyps when it is PEHCR. Okay, so obviously ICG is very important when you have such a case. And especially when you have a case like this, which is coming with recurrent bleed, then definitely it is an IPCV, which is manifesting in different ways. That makes this case so unique, you know. That's very nicely presented. The second thing is, just one more point is like, it's not that drusens are not associated with PEHCR. The only thing is, whenever there's a peripheral growth, the drusens are not around it. I mean, you can have associated AMD changes. There are about 20% of the cases in which there are associated dry AMD changes also, which are at the macula, and you can have a growth in the periphery, but you will never find drusen around this growth, and that is so specific about this PAHCR. But one more question, just why did you do laser initially when you gave the ranibizumab?
So I saw that small leaking polyp, and I was just wondering, what I can do apart from doing this thing, anti-VEGF. And there was a little bit of breakthrough hemorrhage. It was not very evident clinically, but there was a little bit of breakthrough hemorrhage. And I thought that if I clear the hemorrhage with an anti-VEGF and then do laser, I think it'll make my visualization better.
Okay, so I don't think I would have done much different other than avoiding a laser. I would have done an ICG again later once the hemorrhage is cleared, seen if there are any polyps and specifically lasered them, and that would have maybe prevented a future hemorrhage if at all. Dr. Rajan, any comment?
Yeah. No, I think it's a brilliant presentation by Pooja. Hats off to you for bringing such a rare entity. But I would like to know, ask you two questions. One is, definitely there is a role for ICG in this particular case. Number one. Number two is whether the laser was, I saw the laser burns were a little heavy in that area. Was it something to do with the recurrent hemorrhage there?
The first time there was that little bit of the media haze. It was not too much, but it was there. And that is why I think the burns took up to be a little bit more heavy than what I had anticipated. So, yes, I think that a large amount of blood scared me. And then I thought I would laser it also along with anti-VEGF.
Yeah.
So you went around the mass.
Yes, sir.
You went around.
One of the very important entity which looks just like this, behaves just like this, prognosis is just like this, is retinal vasoproliferative tumor. So that also is peripheral, that also is temporal, that also presents as sudden vitreous hemorrhage and is asymptomatic before that. So, so that is something we need to keep in mind. That also has exudation and retinal detachments. The only difference could be that the age that is seen more in younger and middle-aged people, this is seen more in above 70 years of age. But the treatment, I think she's quite right. What Dr. Sinha has done is to do laser for the lesion. In fact, the entire lesion, because that is what is advised even for the vasoproliferative tumor, which I have treated many of them, is just do a direct laser over the entire lesion and a little bit around it as well. If laser doesn't work, cryo works very well, double freeze thaw. And sometimes I've had to do surgery for the associated vitreous hemorrhage. And if these cases are missed, and if you don't do cryo, you remove the vitreous hemorrhage, but you don't do cryo for the original lesion, it will continue to cause problems like exudative RD, tractional RD, and finally lead to neovascular glaucoma. It is VPT is a blinding condition and has to be tackled with cryo or laser, the original problem.
Yeah, but in PHCR, this is not so peripheral to do a cryo. The unfortunate part
is quite posterior.
It was very
quite posterior.
So laser was relatively easier.
So like sir, Nishikant,
I just want to make a point here, sir. Can I make a point? So the surgery in all these peripheral exudative, pathologies, because of breakthrough hemorrhage, if you're going for a surgery, these surgeries are a little tricky because, retina is very thinned out over the lesions. And during, if you get casual and you do a rough PVD induction, there's a lot of, chances that you get a break formation over there. So you have to be very careful there. And once a break forms, it's of course gratifying first to see that the blood is getting drained out from that break. But they don't seal very well because there is a lot of hemorrhage subretinal after the drainage also. And that can lead to PVR very frequently in the post-op period. So you have to be very careful during surgery in these cases.
So like what Nishikant sir mentioned, that series by Shield. So according to that, PHCR, 90% of the cases they reported were between the aura and the equator.
Yeah.
So I mean, what could this be just like an extrafoveal CNVM or a normal PCV? And I feel like secondly, maybe if the lesion, whatever lesion this is so posterior, an OCT through the lesion would really clear the doubts as to what it is.
So if you see her OCT, it does show a growth which is subretinal, like a CNVM. Okay. Now the problem with her case is that the location is such that it's on the boundary. You can neither say categorically that it's an extrafoveal CNVM because it's pretty away from the fovea, so it cannot be just called as an extrafoveal, and it is just around between the arcade and the equator. So I would still go with PHCR in this case.
What are other conditions you have to think of apart from PPT and PHCR?
Yeah, it can be resembling a melanoma. It can resemble a vasoproliferative tumor also.
Pseudomelanoma, they say. Yeah. Then
I think.
Any other condition?
Should we come to an end? Should we conclude this webinar?
It was fantastic, fabulous. Hats off to you all, Partha. And
thank you. So I invite Dr. Partha to give a vote of thanks, our Chairman Scientific Committee, and we all it's teamwork. And I request Dr. Partha to just conclude.
I think before Partha, I want to compliment Partha and Amit for the teamwork. I think wonderful teamwork. I think you brought the best out of every speaker, right from the keynote speaker to each speaker and also the panelists. I think I thought it's like a boring topic without even asking questions. I accepted, but I'm happy. I enjoyed every minute, and I
Thank you.
want to talk later. But great program. I think I learned a lot.
Thank you.
So, but one homework you have to complete, Partha. You have to promise that.
OCT.
Yes.
Yes, we'll work on that. We'll work on that. That's true.
Sir, and thank you first and foremost for being throughout the whole webinar, staying till the end and giving your expert comments. So the first thanks is to you and of course to Dr. Maipal, Dr. Shobhit Chawla, as well as to Dr. Lalit Verma, who is an inspiration for all these webinars which we have on the retina component. He always gives his inputs on them. And of course, Amit, who has been my co-moderator. Thank you so much, Amit. And a lot of brainstorming, thought process, and everything has gone in with the whole team of the scientific committee. And that's how the webinar just came into being. Professor Atul Kumar has been as wonderful as he's always in his talks and his didactic lectures. But the expert panel of Dr. Rajiv Chaudhary, Dr. Hemant Murthy, Professor Namrata Sharma, Mohan, again staying till the end, Malika staying till the end, Nishikant staying till the end, and of course, Ajay, my best friend, he just rushed off to another webinar.
Where did he go?
to Bangladesh. He went to Bangladesh.
Oh my. Okay.
Partha, one bonus for you.
Tomorrow we have a webinar for Bangladesh.
Oh, Achi, okay. Achi is there with us with all her questions.
Achi has been attending all the webinars.
Yes, he's an expert now.
The best thing, you know, is our presenters.
He's talking in Portuguese and I'm translating. Excellent webinar.
But our best thing was our presenters, the phenomenal presentations. I think each presentation stood out on its own merit. Excellent presentation, right from Vishal's to Srinivas's, to Parth's and Manish's, of course, and Veer. Of course, Veer's presentation was phenomenal, and so was Pooja's. So with all these phenomenal presentations went up on the discussions, and the discussions were so enlightening, so enriching that, you know, I think I'd forgotten most of my fellowship in VR surgery. I'm sure Mohan, you will have to say the same thing, and we have replenished.
I'm not forgotten.
So it has been a great webinar. So a quick comment from any of you, please.
Sir, before we take a comment from others, I have a small request.
Mohan sir into VR services.
Yeah, that's true. Thoda paisa hamare liye bhi bacha do. Okay, before we conclude, one last comment from my side. Partha has taken the names of everybody. So before that, I would like to request Dr. Nishikant, like for the DR, cataract in DR, we had a summary of the webinar, which we had put up on the group. I think if Dr. Nishikant can take up this, today whatever we have discussed, just the important points which a cataract surgeon should know. If you can just give a few summary of the today's webinar, I would say 10-15 points or whatever. I mean, so that the cataract surgeon can just take a printout and keep in his OPD. Okay, ARMD ka case hai, ye mere ko dekhna hai. So that will be a very good thing. We did it for the DR. Dr. Lalit Verma helped us for the DR thing. So I request Dr. Nishikant to just, if you can do in a day or two, like today's you're tired, tomorrow you can just recollect the webinar, and you don't have to recollect, you know everything. So just you have to pen it down and you can pass it to us in the group.
Sure, sure.
And thank you once again, the chairpersons, the AIS headquarters.
I have a suggestion. Why not you ask Veer Singh to prepare and send it to Nishikant so he can polish it?
Whatever. I mean, it is a teamwork. I expect the whole thing to be in the group by tomorrow evening, 6 o'clock. So Dr. Nishikant is supposed to do, okay, if we can help Dr. Nishikant, well and good. It's a teamwork. That's what we scientific committee believe in. So once again, thank you all the chairpersons, the speakers, the moderators, the panelists, and the audience, Novartis, everybody over here. So any comments from anybody, welcome.
Yeah. Thank you, Partha and Amit. As a good program. It is a combination of anterior posterior segment. And the patient comes, does not, he has an anterior segment problem or posterior segment problem. He is the patient. So
husband-wife problem.
Yeah. So everybody has to be aware about the posterior segment also, anterior segment also. So that's combination is required. So thank you for arranging a nice program. Thank you and all for a good presentation.
We have with Alcon and PGI tomorrow morning at 11, we have a similar case-based program. So I just thought I'll let you know about that. It's on Retina, but yeah.
Thank you, Partha sir.
Last,
the real boss of scientific committee.
Thank you. Partha sir rocks.
Really a wonderful moderation by you and the entire scientific committee. Somshila ma'am here, she's all smiling, and all the scientific members. You know, I am also an ARC panel member. So whenever a webinar goes like this for 4 hours, and rest of the members, apart from the moderators, the rest of the panel members who are sitting till the end, it's really a kudos to them. So I would like to congratulate entire team of the AIS scientific committee for sitting all that end till, though Retina might not be a subject to you all, but still you have stood by us. That's what we respect. Thank you very much, entire scientific.
Understood. Thanks to concepts from all of you. And Partha rocks here. Partha leads from the front like Dhoni.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, but the last thanks is to Kripal and to our HQ office.
HQ. I mentioned HQ.
And to Novartis, who made all this possible. So a big thanks and applause to all of them.
Thank you, sir. Enjoy, all of you. Enjoy your Saturday evening.
Okay. Saturday evening is all finished. Yeah, it's 9 o'clock.
Evening is gone.
तो लग रहा है यार विशाल, तेरी इवनिंग खत्म हो गई, हमारी शुरू हो रही है.
पूरा हो गया.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you.